The Sabbath debate, the 27 questions skeptics can't answer. For centuries, skeptics and theologians have wrestled over a crucial question. Was the Sabbath nailed to the cross? Did Paul really erase one of God's 10 commandments? Or has something been misunderstood? Does Colossians 2:16-23 abolish the Sabbath? Some claim it does. They quote the verse and say, "Let no man judge you in respect of the Sabbath. See, the Sabbath is gone." But wait, if that's true, why does the Bible still say, "Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. From one Sabbath to another shall all flesh come to worship before me. There remaineth therefore a Sabbath keeping for the people of God. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." If God's law is unchangeable, why is the Sabbath the only commandment they claim was removed? Let's challenge everything you've been told. The unchanging Sabbath. The foundation. The Sabbath isn't just a Jewish tradition. It was established at creation, written by God's own finger, and reinforced by Jesus himself. And yet, some claim Colossians 2 abolished it. The problem? There are 2 laws in the Bible. One is eternal, written in stone. The other is a temporary system, written in a book. The Sabbath is part of the 10 Commandments, written by God himself and placed inside the Ark of the Covenant. But the ordinances, the ceremonial laws, were written by Moses and placed beside the Ark as a witness against the people. So when Paul says, handwriting of ordinances, he isn't talking about the 10 Commandments. He's referring to the law of Moses. So let's start asking the hard questions. Did Paul really abolish the Sabbath? If Colossians 2:16 abolished the Sabbath, did it also abolish the other 9 commandments? If the Sabbath was just a Jewish law, why did God give it before sin and before Israel existed? If the Sabbath was nailed to the cross, why did Jesus still command obedience to the 10 commandments? If the Sabbath was temporary, why did Jesus say he was Lord of the Sabbath instead of ending it? If Sunday replaced the Sabbath, where in the Bible is that command given? If Paul was against the Sabbath, why does he keep it regularly in Acts? The law of Moses versus the 10 Commandments. Why does the Bible distinguish between the law of Moses and the 10 Commandments? If the 10 Commandments were nailed to the cross, why does James say breaking one makes you guilty of all? Why did God write the 10 Commandments in stone but the ordinances in a book? If Colossians 2:16 is about the weekly Sabbath, why does it list Sabbaths alongside feast days and new moons, things from the law of Moses? If Colossians 2:14 says ordinances were nailed to the cross, and the 10 Commandments are never called ordinances, how can that verse apply to the Sabbath? The Sabbath in the New Testament and beyond. Why did Jesus tell his disciples to pray that their flight not be on the Sabbath if it was to be abolished? If the Sabbath was removed, why does Hebrews say Sabbath keeping remains for God's people? Why does Isaiah say all flesh will worship on the Sabbath in the new heavens and new earth? If the Sabbath was ceremonial, why does the Bible never call it a shadow law, only a commandment? Historical proofs and Christian worship. Why do history books confirm that Sunday worship was introduced centuries after Christ, not by Christ himself? If Sunday worship is biblical, why do Catholic leaders admit they changed it? Why did early Christians continue to keep the Sabbath even after Christ's resurrection? If Paul wanted people to abandon the Sabbath, why did Gentiles specifically ask to hear the gospel the next Sabbath? If the Sabbath was abolished, why do multiple sources confirm Christians still observed it for over 300 years after Jesus? What will you do with this truth? If Jesus never changed the Sabbath, and the apostles never changed it, why do modern churches keep Sunday? If God's word never changes, why would he establish a new day of worship after thousands of years? If Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments," why wouldn't that include the Sabbath? If Sabbath keeping was just for the Jews, why does the Bible say it's for all flesh? If keeping Sunday is just tradition, why don't more people question it and return to the Bible's command? Will you follow God's word or man's traditions? Now that you know the truth, What will you do about it? The closing challenge. You've seen the evidence. You've heard the questions skeptics can't answer. Now, the choice is yours. Choose this day whom you will serve. If you've been challenged by this, share it. If you see the truth, obey it. And if you're ready to follow God's commandments, start today.